In part 1, we looked at connecting to the MariaDB charity database with a JDBC driver inside of the IntelliJ IDE. In this tutorial, we will write a Java web application using WAR or Web Archive package. Our web application will connect to MariaDB with a data source object that we will register with the Java naming and directory interface in our web server. This is the preferred way of connecting to a database. These are the high-level steps we will perform in this lesson. First, we will create a new JDBC2 connection module, and here we will actually use IntelliJ's built-in capability. We will create a new Tomcat J2EE web archive project. Then we will do some cleanup and refactoring of our overall project structure. And finally, we will set up our JDBC JNDI resource within the Tomcat context.xml. And then we will write code to access the MariaDB through the Java servlet. Back in IntelliJ, let's have a look at our Git status. We are on the master branch. What we are going to do now is create a new module and name it JDBC2. New module. We're going to use the Java Enterprise selection. We will set up our Maven artifact coordinates. We will select the application server of Tomcat 8535. If you don't have anyone installed, you might have to install it yourself. Select Next. Yes, we do want a project SDK assigned. And the only option we will select here is servlet, and select finish. And you can see it created the hello servlet, the web XML, and the index JSP and the POM for us. This is the Maven POM that was generated by IntelliJ for us, and we know we are on Java 11. Servlet, JUnit, and the Maven WAR plugin. It created the hello servlet for us. We got a hello world JSP page, and it set up a empty web app web.xml. Now we can set it up in our environment. So edit configuration, a Tomcat WAR. We specify Chrome to start and the name of the URL, and select OK, and we will run this. And it's up and running. IntelliJ sent us to the JSP page and the hello servlet page. And back to IntelliJ, we will stop the server. And before we proceed with the JNDI JDBC update, let's clean up and refactor a bit. First, we see here it created a JDBC2 at the end of the package name, and we will refactor that. Then looking at our POM, I think it's a good idea that we will move all of our JUnit dependencies to our parent POM. This is the parent POM, so we'll add the JDBC2 module. Now we are looking at JDBC1 POM, so we'll move these dependencies down to our parent POM. We'll do the same for our JDBC2 project POM. Now we'll leave the servlet in because it's specific to our JDBC project. And we get that version number as well. Remove the duplicate. Back to our parent. Let's have a look at the very first one we created. We used Maven archetype here, so we can probably just leave it as is. So what we will do now, we will use this as our parent for all of our other POMs. Make sure the version and naming is matching. And let's see if that's set up correctly. We'll be going to Maven and select clean compile test. We got a successful build of our 3 modules. Make sure we have the parent set up here as well. Get the parent in here and update Maven and run our build again. And now let's see if our JDBC generated war file still runs. It does look like it's running indeed, so that means we've finished our refactoring. Now back to IntelliJ. We will stop the web app from running. And now we get back to our original goal, and that is to use a JDBC connection that we've defined with the Java naming and directory interface. So essentially we'll go back to our JDBC1 application. And looking at our test, we created the driver manager app. We set up our database connection, and then we got the database connection. We wrote a unit test to make sure that we can access the database catalog name. So now what we want to do is we want to define the JDBC connection elements using JNDI within Tomcat. So looking at the official Tomcat JNDI data source how-to, we see that they have a MySQL example, tell you how to set up your database. Now we have a MariaDB and we've already set it up. And they specify how to configure the JNDI data source in Tomcat by adding a declaration for the database resource in the context. This is a context.xml file. And here is the official example. We will have to adapt this for MariaDB after defining the resource name within the context. And what's good about the context XML, it has all these comments that explain to you how to set it up. Set up the resource reference within the web.xml. And here they specify how to set up a test.jsp page. Now we've already generated a servlet, so what we will do, going back to our generated code, close all tabs, we will create a utility that gets the database connection, and we will use that utility within our hello servlet that will essentially return back the catalog name for us. So following the instructions, the official Tomcat instructions now, we look at how Tomcat was configured and we see this is the directory. So now we are looking for the actual context.xml file. It says you can place one inside meta-inf or inside host element, and it has a config context.xml directory. So let's open up that directory in Windows. And here is our Tomcat context.xml file. We'll open it with Notepad++. And we see the context root element. And here we have defined our resource name of JDBC charity database with the data source and the MariaDB driver, which, going back to IntelliJ, it is the same one we are using within IntelliJ. And then going back to the official Tomcat JNDI JDBC connection, we see that we also have to add a resource reference to our web.xml. So we will use this. And we will use our defined name. And now we're ready to add the code. to access the database. Okay, so now we want to create a database utility that will get the connection using the JDNI JDBC connection that we've just defined in the Tomcat context.xml. We know our method will look something like that. We create a class called database We create a method called create connection, and it uses the initial context, and this is the class that would actually go and pick up the data source from the defined JNDI name for us, and then we get the connection. Then we add a get catalog name method, and in here we call create connection, we call get catalog, and we return the name. And in order for this helper class to be called, we update our servlet class. So instead of saying hello world, we'll say hello MariaDB, and we will call the utility method from here, get catalog name. So now we will build it and run it. JDBC2 lifecycle clean install, and we run it from our Tomcat 8535. And here we have the Hello World ASP. We select Hello World Servlet. And there we have Hello MariaDB and the catalog name of Charity Database. So now we know how to use the JNDI naming inside of Tomcat to access the database. This concludes this lesson.